Dear learners, today we will practice about how to give advice and how to understand the pieces of advice. This source I have been sharing by taking material from AmericanEnglishState.Government resources. Here we will primarily focusing on giving advices. Here is a list of some sentences which may boost up your suggestive opinions. If you have the intention to give advice to other or you have a good will to give suggestion to other, you may begin like this. You should. Why don't you? Why don't you start reading books? My advice is to focus on reading. I think you should have a good sleep. If I were you, I would work for the help of others. Have you thought about working for others? It might be a good idea to take care of your mom. So learners, you focus that there are some words to give advice. These are suggest, advise, recommend, admonish, consult, counsel, show the ropes, wise up, stuff like this. Now let's practice these words in different sentences. There are two situations. You are asking for advice, and in another situation, you are giving advice. What do you suggest? What do you advise me to do? Or what I should do, or what should I do about? Or what ought I to do? Or what's your advice? Or if you were me, what would you do? What do you think I should do? What would you suggest I do? I should do about could you, can you give me some advice? Or could you give me some advice? Or what would you do in the situation? So there are 4 to 5 very popular ways of asking for advice. Now let's see, you are in a position to offer your advice. You say, if I were you, I would, and these continuation mark shows that you can put up any idea over here, right? Why don't you? You would better, or you had better, you ought to, you ought to practice, you ought to work hard. It shows your obligation as well, right? Then another way of giving advice. If you take my advice, you will, or you shall, or it might be a good idea to, I advise you, or I suggest you. This is very popular expression, learners. I advise you or I suggest you. This is really, really very popular, right? Have you thought about, I think you should. I think you should. Maybe you should. How about working on this idea? Or then you say, you might try mixing up multiple ideas, and I would advise you to. My advice would be, here you go. So let's primarily focus on some letters which may give you advice. We will try to quickly focus on components, how you may incorporate these suggestions in writing. In Unit 2 and 3, you have learned how to write informal letters and letters of apology. In the listening section of Unit 3, you have learned how to give advice. And in this unit, you will learn to write letters giving advice. Advice letters are difficult to write, but you will learn to write them if you follow the guidelines given in this section, right? So quickly, we are going to focus on letter of advice, which can have a powerful effect. An advice written in a letter form becomes a valuable piece because the written word has a motivational part than casual comments or even serious verbal suggestions. I hope so, learner. The content is getting more clear to you. As we had earlier practiced about some words of advice, of asking about advice and giving advice. And we have also learned how to incorporate this material into the form of the sentences. And if these sentences they are written in a valuable form of written version, they may be more impactful. So learners, I am expecting from you that you will quickly read through the whole content that is appearing on your screen. And I suggest you that you need to quickly try on all these tips which already have been given over here. Tips for writing advice letters. Respond quickly to the advice for the advice for advice. Then in all cases, the tone of this letter should be helpful and congenial. Congenial mean very much social and amicable. Be careful appearing judgmental. Judgmental का मतलब है कोई direct comment criticism ना हो which may offend others, right? If you cannot give advice, express your regret, then avoid strong language, then keep your advice simple and to the point. And what is more important, yes, it should be simple and to the point. Maintain a tone of appreciation without any hint of feeling of the superiority. Because students जब आप एडवाइस दे रहे होते हैं तो दूसरा इसको लाइक किसी भी तरीके से अंडरस्टैंड कर सकता है आपको दूसरे के इमोशंस फीलिंग्स को भी लाइक विदाउट गेटिंग देम हर्ट आपने और अपनी सेंस को भी क्या आप अगर एडवाइस दे रहे हैं तो यू आर नॉट एट ऑल like showing your superiority because you are not at all superior. You in fact want to help others, right? Similar notes पे we are going ahead. If you are the seeking advice, look to the people you know and you can rely on, right? ये बहुत ही significant है. Is it clear? And then when someone responds to your request for advice, it is always a good idea to write a thank you letter or letter of appreciation. It means if somebody is suggesting you, आप लोग जो है उसको quickly respond करें while making it appreciative, right? So here is one of the very good examples. I take you along and we are going ahead. For example, here is a letter from university to a student. Dear student, hello and welcome to the spring semester of functional English. As your tutor, I believe that I have a wealth of information to share with you and I hope that you may benefit from my knowledge and experience. Although being an AIUU student allows you a great deal of freedom, but with this freedom comes a great deal of responsibility. And if you are a self-motivated person, that this class is for you and success will follow. So you can say how candid expression you notice in the very beginning. It's very much candid and very light, right? We are going ahead. The most important aspect of this class is communication with your classmates and with the instructor tutor in the tutorial meetings and through email. I strongly suggest, student, you can notice that here is an advice word that you should attend the tutorials because if you have any questions about an assignment or a unit, you can ask your classmates and the tutor to help you. Then keep in mind that being an AIU student may be a new experience for you, right? We are going ahead speedily and I will take you quickly to another point. I advise you that you are supposed to pick out as many advice words as are there in this letter. Be prepared. Do not Don't be afraid to ask for help. Use the audio cassettes. Consider type your assignment on the computer. Then good luck. And it is a letter by Umar Farooq. So Umar Farooq has given valuable advices to his learners and strong suggestions they have been followed up. You have also noticed a list of all those valuable expressions that how you are making suggestions. Then there is another example related to use advice words. Advice columns are very popular and entertaining part of the newspaper. And usually, many times, some very good advices they are given in newspaper just to capture the attention of the readers. Then there are many readers who need some suggestions, and obviously, if you have some additional information, you need to share your advices to others, right? And there are not only just advice columns, I think advice messages are also there and available onto internet and on WhatsApp as well. So my agony, here is an interesting letter that has been taken from the newspaper, and you can see number of the words which have been used over here which are indicating that this is an advice letter, right? तो यहाँ पर आप लोग देख सकते हैं, you can quickly focus. Can you recommend something that are not drugs, please? And here it is a query. The person is seeking advice, right? So here is some advices which are being given over here, right? आई सजेस्ट यू कि आप लोग इसका स्क्रीनशॉट लें और इसको पॉज करके रीड आउट कर लें और आई थिंक आपको ये काफ़ी हेल्पफुल हो जाएगा आप लोगों के लिए कंटेंट बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग है इसमें कुछ ऐसे सेंटेंसेस वर्ड्स हैं जो आपको लगेगा इट इज़ बिलीव जैसे the application of a strong magnetic force to blood improve circulation देन सजेस्टिव टोन है और बहुत ही पोलाइट और माइल्ड टोन है ऐसा नहीं है कि इसमें आपको कहीं पर भी कोई हार्ड इम्पैक्ट और हार्ड एक्सप्रेशंस नजर नहीं आएंगे और इम्पोलाइटनेस तो बिल्कुल नजर नहीं आएगी अब यहाँ देखें टू लेटर्स हैं और आपने उसमें कुछ ऐसे सेंटेंस पैटर्न्स यूज करने हैं विच आर बिगनिंग फ्रॉम इफ आई वर यू आई वुड और आई थिंक यू शुड डू दिस थिंग एंड व्हाई डोंट यू इट्स मीन आपने उसमें कुछ प्रोबेबिलिटी और उसमें आपने एडवाइस और उसके अलावा साथ साथ आप कुछ सजेस्टिव आपकी टोन होनी चाहिए तो ये आप इस पे प्रैक्टिस भी कर सकते हैं और ये बल्कि आप इसको एक्टिविटी समझें अगर इसको करेंगे तो आपके लिए काफ़ी ज़्यादा ये हेल्पफुल हो सकती है स्पेशली रीडिंग आपकी रीडिंग और राइटिंग एक्टिविटी के रेफरेंस से अगर हम बात करें तो आप लोग जो जितना भी कंटेंट है काइंडली रीड थ्रू द होल कंटेंट before practicing for writing, right? And then go for writing as well. So, this is not just incorporated in the letter of advice. You can also give pieces of advice while talking to the others. And here goes a listening activity. I want you to quickly read through the whole content and these recorded texts. If that is not there, you can just read the whole text here. This interview has been transcribed here for your convenience sake. And this is a talk between Dr. Hassan and Said. Dr. Hassan and Said, they are talking to each other that now Said, I see that you smoke rather happily. And then answer is, yes, I'm afraid I do smoke too much, right? So this is how you may speedily get along with all these things. And this is advice and sets of advice. You notice that here the doctor advises each sentence is an indirect speech. Direct speech is just like you should do this thing. Instead of saying you should, you can say, but many times your advice used to be in like indirect speech. The doctor advised say to give up smoking. For example, you are having view of or you are taking some advice and later you are interpreting the doctor advised me to give up smoking. Or you are interpreting this advice to others that he directed say to change to milder cigarettes. He recommended reducing the number of cigarettes, right? So you notice how does this mean indirect speech. I hope so the content is getting more and more clear. I hope so this video on reading on advice in the piece of reading writing help you